musical, but the music in an opera is very different. Has anybody here seen a musical before? Raise your hand if you've seen a musical. What musicals have you seen? Tell me something you've seen.
High School Musical.
High School, you're going to say that. I'm going to say that too. Nobody said it. High School Musical. What do you think if I told you that there wouldn't be a High School Musical or Seussical or Sound of Music or Wizard of Oz or The Wiz or anything like that if it weren't for operas? Because opera was invented first, and then the idea for musicals came from that. So opera, as you can imagine, it's changed a lot over the past 400 years, right? So something that was composed in the 17th century is going to sound very different from something that was composed in the 19th century. And then when we hit the 20th century, music, opera, drama, art, all took kind of a radical turn. We had what they call the Expressionistic movement. Have you ever heard of Expressionism? Raise your hand. The main gist of, you have. Expressionism, or Expressionistic art pieces, are pieces that are trying to convey to you some really strong feelings, some raw emotion. And I'm going to explain it further, but instead of talking, I'm going to show you a really famous Expressionistic painting. And you may have actually seen this before, because I even actually seen this painting on The Simpsons one time. So it's pretty famous. It's by Edvard Munch, and it's called The Scream. And I think you'll agree, it's not your general like bowl of fruit or landscape people were doing before that. See that? Have you seen that before? Yeah. So you see there's like a lot of... That's a scream, that's what it's called. So you can see there's a lot of really strong emotion in a piece like this. Now, so when we think of Expressionism, a lot of times we think of things that like this that are kind of harsh and kind of maybe disturbing, upsetting. But Expressionism can actually be about expressing all different kinds of emotions, not just, like the harsh and scary ones. Now, when music became more expressionistic, the focus of music shifted from being all about the beautiful voice to instead being more about how music can better serve the drama of the story. So you get this kind of freedom in expressionistic music and in all 20th century music that you didn't have before. It can sound really nice and sweet and pretty if that goes with the words, but it can also be really jagged and harsh and kind of startling if that goes better with the action that's going on. I have a couple of really short excerpts here from a couple of operas. The first one is by Mozart. This is an 18th century opera, and I want you to take a listen to how music from the 18th century sounded. Very nice, kind of pretty, very melodic, very easy, right? So, compare that to a piece written in the 20th century by Seymour Barat. See if you can hear the difference. So which one do you think sounds more expressionistic? The second one, very good. There's a lot of feeling in there. It sounds, there's a lot, you can hear there's a lot of action going on. It's maybe, fearful, maybe it's scary, maybe it's even kind of violent. There's something big going on there. Now, like I was saying, 20th century music doesn't all have to sound jagged and harsh like that. It can sound very pleasing as well, depending on what goes with the words. So I've got a little aria here. It's from a 20th century opera called The Tenderland by Aaron Copland. And in this, you can see how the music really serves the drama of the piece. And you also, I think, can hear roots of like a modern... Now the time has grown so short, the world has grown so wide. I'll be graduating soon. When I stay inside, Lord makes me think there's not a lot of repetition of the musical ideas. There's not really any repetition of the text at all. And a very important part of 20th century music, the orchestra, played today by Mr. Baker on the piano, has a very important role in 20th century music. He's not just there to accompany the melody. The orchestra has its own melodies to play, and it's a very important part of the piece. So by contrast, going back in time to the 19th century, here's an aria by Donizetti. You're going to hear there's a lot of repetition of the music, there's a lot of repetition of the text. It's in a very strict format. We call it ABA. You get the first section of music, that's the A section. Then you get something that sounds totally different, so that's the B. Then you go back to something that sounds a lot like the beginning, so that's A again, ABA. In this selection, the orchestra plays kind of a secondary role. It's mainly there just to accompany the melody line. So the whole idea back then was just beauty of the melody line rather than importance of the orchestra. So here you can hear there was an awful lot of repetition. The music, it sounded the same. Da-dum, 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 da-dum. I did that a ton of times, right? I repeated the words a lot. And sometimes, because the words were so much less important then, I just didn't say any words at all. It was just right? You know? Because the whole thing was about the beauty of the sound of music and not so much necessarily about the drama. This show, you're going to see how important the role of the orchestra is, because sometimes the orchestra is its own character even. You can hear it in the music, you can hear my phone ringing, you can hear me dialing the phone, and you can even hear what the person is saying on the other end because the piano is playing it. So I'm going to show you what I mean. I have a short excerpt here to show you, and this has some visual aids to help you picture what the person might be saying on the other end of the phone. Hello, this is